of the Art Lewis Show for this Monday. Happy St. Patty's Day, the 17th of March. And with us this morning is State Representative Bill G. Oshuti. Good morning, Bill.
Hey, good morning, Art. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and I'm told that I have got some Irish on actually the Shuti side of the family, the McTavish clan. So, Shuti is not an Irish name, but I at least have some Irish heritage I can claim back in the family lineage.
Very good, very, very good. All right, so let's chat about a number of things. We'll start with the state budget, and this year the governor can't simply dictate because obviously she has a split legislature. Where do you think it's going to end up?
Yeah, Art, and we know this is an important issue, one that we've talked about a lot, and I think this will be a different budget environment because there's split government in Lansing, and you and I have talked previously about the importance of having a legislative process where people have to sit down and talk, not just ram things through. And I think, one of the key pressure points in this year's budget is going to be road funding. I mean, you heard the governor in her State of the State talk about, this is year 7, Art, and we still haven't really fixed our local roads. So she talked about her roads plan. We've talked about our roads plan. There's about $3 billion with a B that we need to invest in our state budget annually to make sure we actually fix our local roads. And that's going to be something I work with my Republican colleagues on. And we need to do so in a way that is, fiscally responsible of our budget and your tax dollars.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but did not the Republicans say they had a plan which would not increase taxes?
Yes, no, we do. We have a great plan that will not increase taxes. It was in committee last week. I think you may just see it voted out before the end of March. So, we have a plan that involves, fully dedicating our gas tax revenue to roads. I think that, you look across the country, almost every state has their gas tax funding devoted to roads. And in Michigan, we're going to devote our gas tax fund to roads, but at the same time, hold our school aid funding harmless to make sure that we're still giving our educators and our public education system the resources it means. So that means something's going to have to give, and what's going to have to give are all these pet projects, enhancement grants, and pork spending that takes up way too much of our budget.
Because the gas tax partially was allocated to education, does that require a constitutional change or is it legislative?
It's a legislative change. It's a legislative change, but anything we do regarding that legislative change, we include language to say that we're going to hold the school aid fund harmless. So there will be no money lost to our schools. I'll say that 3 times. No money cut from our schools. No money cut from our schools in this plan, because we're going to backfill that with other revenue in our state's budget. And this is all, Art. This is about priorities. We talked about this previously. When you set your budget, you got to start with funding the things that are most important, and that's going to be infrastructure, education, and public safety. We're going to take care of those 3 things. And then, if there's money left over in the budget for, your accessory expenditures, you can spend money on those. But first, what Michiganders expect and what they should get is taking care of those core government priorities.
So, when it comes to education, and we talk about holding harmless the education, which is fine, but we spend probably more than most states on education, yet our results are down near the bottom. Money doesn't necessarily align with results, does it?
No, and you're absolutely correct, Art, and that we have been spending more and more money in towards the Department of Education, and frankly, our results have not been improving. We're 42nd in the country on our standardized testing results, and our 3rd grade reading scores should make everybody in the state mad and frustrated. So you're absolutely right that our public education system is failing the kids of the state of Michigan. And So obviously, you want to make sure that you're fully funding education. But you also want to make sure that accountability is part of that process. And what you've seen, again, what you'll see before the end of March is House Republicans acting on these priorities. We have legislation that cleared out of the Education Committee and is going to be sent over to the Senate already this week and next week to make sure that we're putting phonics back in schools. Again, making sure that these tried and true methods of teaching are able to be taught in our workplaces, addressing the teacher shortage, but making it easier. If you have a doctorate in history, Art, and you want to teach in our schools, we should make it easier for you to be able to go and have qualified experts teach in our schools. And then also making sure that there's more accountability in our education system. So that way, we're holding our public servants and our public officials accountable for the success of our public schools. And that's really important. Right now, Art, I introduced a constitutional amendment last week, and it heard testimony. We're one of, I think, 6 states that has a state superintendent who is not appointed by the governor. And that means our state superintendent really has no responsibility for the failed outcomes of our public school system. And so the legislation I introduced said the governor should appoint this person because the buck should ultimately stop with the governor when our public school systems fail our kids.
But who appoints him? How does he get the job?
It's appointed by the State Board of Education, which, again, the State Board of Education is probably one of the most worthless organizations in state government. It's 8 elected eight elected members of this board who really do nothing but, make high-minded policy statements about our education, hire our state superintendent, and then continue to fail our students in our schools. So I think clearly what we've been doing has not been working. It's good to put some more accountability into that process of our state superintendent.
The old adage, you do the same thing over and over again, don't expect change.
Yeah, it's the definition of insanity. To do otherwise.
Insanity, that's it.
Yeah.
So, and I just, I look at what's happening in Washington with the Department of Education, and in some ways I'm going, hallelujah. It's about time we did something because, the farther we take control of education away from local government and local families, the worse it seems to get.
Yeah, and I think what you touched on there is the more that we can empower parents and the more that we can empower our local school districts in the areas who know what it takes for their students to succeed, who know the communities in which the schools are based, that's a better recipe for success than, ivory towers in Washington or Lansing.
Yeah.
And that's a very important ingredient of this process. And again, it's in our committee testimony last week when they were talking, we talked about my constitutional amendment for the governor to appoint the state superintendent. One of the members of the other party on the committee said, well, I'm just worried about, putting this much change into our state's Department of Education. I said, we're 42nd in the country. We could use a little bit of change.
Yeah.
We could use a shakeup. We can use doing something differently.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, hang on. I got to take a break here. We'll be back with talking to State Representative Bill G. Schuette. More ahead here on the Art Lewis Show.
Mark your calendar.
All right, back with you here on the Art Lewis Show, talking to State Representative Bill G. Schuette. Had a question from a listener, Bill. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but we can try it. Can Michigan do anything about tort reform due to some outrageous lawsuits? They're pointing to a new Starbucks lawsuit. I think it had to do with spilled tea or something, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, no, an important issue, and I appreciate the question. And I think you look at, the cost of insurance in our state, the cost of healthcare in our state, and one of the, drivers that kind of sometimes flies under the radar is just how litigious and how many crazy, out of nowhere lawsuits are filed, which then just drive up the cost for everybody. And you see, these cases about the Starbucks lawsuit as an example, but you'll see all these different auto insurance fraud cases. And what that ends up doing is, they can kind of make for a funny news story, but they also make for a really hard financial cost for all of us. And I think one of the things we're going to be working, I said, on the House Insurance Committee this term, is looking at cracking down on fraud. Because if you're trying to game the system and you're trying to exploit our insurance industry for your own personal financial gain, it's not a victimless crime. The people who end up paying the cost are you and me, and we have some of the highest auto insurance rates in the country. And we all know that our healthcare costs in America are sky high. So that's an important part, an ingredient in the equation to make sure that we're keeping life as affordable across the board for Michiganders.
And do you expect to see some legislation?
I do. I think you'll see in the coming months, Art, a pretty comprehensive package on cracking down on insurance fraud, especially looking in auto insurance, and that's going to be again an important part of making sure that we pass some important auto insurance reforms before I entered into the legislature, and it has had some impact in lowering insurance rates. We still have really high insurance rates, auto insurance rates in the state of Michigan, and that's a huge driver of cost for people in our state, and it's an incentive for people to live somewhere else where it's cheaper. So I think to build on the success of those reforms, cracking down on insurance fraud is going to be something we work on, and I'm sure you'll see something come through the House.
All right. I want to go back just for a minute to education before we move on to some other things here. But you mentioned the proposal going over to the Senate. Have you had conversations with senators, and do you feel there is room for bipartisanship on this education issue?
Yeah, I think on certain policies there are. I think for example, we passed some legislation on, improving teacher certification for getting trade school instructors into public schools. And that legislation passed with, more than 90 votes, out of 110. So there's clearly bipartisan support there. Even something like my constitutional amendment, I proposed to have the governor appoint the state superintendent. I mean, I said earlier when I testified in the week, someday the lion and the lamb will lay down, but today we have a bill that a Schuette and a Whitmer can agree on. So there's a start there. But so there are some areas of bipartisan agreement, and I think that's kind of where we're going to have to start right now, is go after some of the low-hanging fruit and then build, and that's the legislative process, and then you broadly build consensus on other areas.
Have you had conversations with the governor about this in terms of appointment?
The governor's office, I haven't talked to them directly, but I do know from various discussions that have gone on in Lansing that they're, very open to and supportive of the concept. I mean, that's why the governor, she basically created her own state department, this MyLeap, the Michigan Department of, Lifelong Learning, essentially, to try and get around the obstacle that they view the state superintendent poses to her efforts to improve education. So I definitely think you'd see some support there.
How did that happen? I mean, if the Department of Education in the state of Michigan is an executive branch department, how is it not under the direct control of the executive branch?
That has to go back to our 1968 Constitution. So that was, I guess, what was decided back when we had that Constitutional Convention. And doesn't make a ton of sense for one of, again, like only 6 states that does it this way. And you look at some of the top performing states, whether it's a Massachusetts or it's a Texas or a Florida, they all have, a governor-appointed state superintendent.
All right, let's turn our attention to the state economy. I know that's one of your favorite topics, rebuilding Michigan's economy. it would appear here in the Great Lakes Bay region, we're doing a decent job because we've got Corning building $1 billion facility, Hemlock Semiconductor expanding, SK Siltron, the plastics company. We seem to be leading the charge here in the Great Lakes Bay region. Do you see it that way? And what's it going to take to get the rest of the state moving in the same direction?
Yeah, we definitely have built some good energy here in the Great Lakes Bay region. My goal, Art, as a state representative for this area, is to make sure this is, one of the best, regions in the state. And Michigan's the best state in the country to start a business and start a family. And we definitely have some good momentum here, from whether it's Hemlock or SK Siltron, the different works and developments we've seen from Dow and their R&D facility. But the trick is this is a fierce marketplace right now in the United States of America and in our global world in the year 2025. And if you are not growing, you are losing. If you are standing still, you are actually falling behind. And that's what we need to always be cognizant of, is we always have to try and win. We have to make sure that we're getting, we have the most competitive tax, regulatory environment, that we have enough housing for people to move into. And
we'll come back to that.
Life is affordable. Yeah. This is my last segment, though. So, yeah. Yeah.
The housing is a big issue, isn't it?
Yes. No, it's a huge issue. And, $90,000 to every new single-family or multifamily home build right now in the state of Michigan is regulatory cost. And that is permitting, that is zoning, that is the whole host of different red tape and government regulations that are on top of trying to break ground. And when you have we're at more than 90% occupancy in housing in the Great Lakes Bay region right now, Art. You cannot attack an issue like this without addressing the supply concerns. This is not just a demand issue. This is a supply issue. And we're making it too hard to build housing. And that's across the board, from, middle income to affordable housing. We need to do a better job. And that starts with getting government out of the way.
Yeah, but with the current construction costs starting around $300 a square foot and going up from there, how do we build affordable housing anymore?
Yeah, again, you look at those construction costs. If you can take, that $90,000, if you can cut it in half and chop down that cost from the regulatory cost, that's a big place to start. And then you also have to look at, what types of incentives can we provide. And Thomas Sowell would say you get less of what you tax and more of what you subsidize, right? And if we need more housing, we should probably be taxing and putting less regulatory cost on housing. And we should be looking at ways where we can lower costs and increase production of those materials that we need, instead of, again, trying to, tax and zone them out of existence.
Well, I know you need to run, so we will thank you for your time this morning, but we always look forward to our conversation, and say hi to your dad for me.
Absolutely, will do, Art. Thank you for having me on, man.
All right. Talk to you again. Take care.
Yep.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bill G. Schuette, State Representative, we thank him for joining us, and we'll have open phones for the remainder of the hour. 989-752-6111.
Farming comes with trade.
It's a guess on my part. I would want to see him signed.
Well, isn't in the past like administrators signed on behalf of the president when they write out like condolence letters and stuff like that?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about in terms of the routine stuff that you might get in the mail from the White House. But when it comes to legal documents, and an executive order is a legal document, I would think that the person issuing it has to sign it. That's my guess. But again, just a guess.
Yeah.
But
so
I understand
Adam,
all those exonerations and, commutations and all of that stuff. I don't know what's going to happen with that. That's an interesting question, and I don't have an answer.
All right. Fair enough.
But it's certainly a good question. I mean, my personal opinion is I'd want to see him personally signed. I want to know the guy signing it knows what he's signing.
Well, like DocuSign for your house, it's not really your signature. I mean, it is your signature, but it's replicated on there.
Yeah, I understand. I don't think that should be appropriate with legal government documents.
Right.
But that's just a guess on my part.
Maybe somebody else might know.
Maybe. All right.
Alrighty, sir. Take care.
Take care, Mark. Bye-bye now.
Yep. Bye.
989-752-6111. I can't fathom legal documents, legal government documents like that have, in effect, the weight of law. I can't fathom they can be electronically signed by staff without the commander-in-chief signing them. Because, I mean, what does that mean then? Staff could create these things and just willy-nilly sign them? It just doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? I mean, to me, I want to see the guy in charge putting his John Hancock on it. Like we've seen with Trump, we've seen with other presidents. And, then it carries some weight because you know that the guy signing it actually was the author of it, or at least understood what he's signing, hopefully. Hopefully, he says. So I don't know. Yeah, and I heard the stories about that with all of the commutations and the power of the presidency to offer clemency and all of that. Anyhow, 989-752-6111, the number to call and chime in.
Jim Wilson, I hear from
Deals on suits, timing's everything. And now's the time, because Macy's semi-annual suit sale is here. Save 40 to 60% on new suits and blazers from Calvin Klein and Michael Kors with performance suits.
All right, we're back with you here on WSGW, and back to the phones. Al is in Bay City. Good morning, Al.
Good morning, Arthur. Saturday night, I attended that program by the Saginaw River Marine Society and put on the Defoe Shipbuilding.
Yep.
And there were so many people there, I couldn't even get in the door. It was about 2 hours long, the program itself, but it was really well done. But I was going to say, April 19th, you should get Rick Mexter on your program because he's going to do a real good program on boats too. So
when's he doing that?
He's coming on. So, but
yeah, when?
I really
when? What's the date of
I think it's the 19th of April.
April 19th. Yeah. All right.
That's
a great idea.
He's going to be doing a program on boats and sunken boats and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'll give him a call. He's one of my favorite people.
Okay, and yesterday I went on in the parade at St. Pat's, and it was the coldest parade I've ever been in.
No, was it really? Yeah,
so,
it was pretty nasty. This weather's up and down. This is good weather to get
the crowd they usually have.
Yeah, this is a good time to get sick. So watch yourself when you go out. Make sure you bundle up accordingly.
Yeah. So it was too bad. It would have been a nice parade too.
Yeah, big one.
They had a lot of nice floats in it and stuff.
Yep.
But,
well, Mother Nature wins.
I didn't understand.
Yeah. But anyway, Rick Mixter is really a nice, does a nice
I'll give him a
program
call.
on. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Good enough. Thanks, Al. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
And let's talk to Russ in Bay City. Good morning, Russ.
Hey, good morning, Art. I was watching that speech that Vance gave at the plastics place in Calcallan there, or in Linwood, and I couldn't believe the numbers. I was like, this quick? They've turned around losing 10,000 manufacturing jobs a month to gaining 10,000 manufacturing jobs a month just in a few months. And it's like, why are Democrats so opposed to American manufacturing. I don't get it.
It's not that they're opposed to American manufacturing. They're
Then
opposed
why,
to
when
giving.
they're
They're
in power,
opposed.
are they moving our
they're
manufacturing overseas?
I was just going to tell you, because they're opposed to anything Trump does.
No. When they were in power, they were moving jobs out.
Yeah, I understand that. I
Which
understand
means
that, but
they're
they're
in
not going
favor of it.
But they're not going to change their mind now, particularly with Trump in.
Well, no. I mean, clearly they support moving the jobs out and oppose moving them in. And I just wondered if you knew why. I can't,
I would have.
figure out why they're so opposed to American manufacturing.
I don't either. I have no idea. I mean, it makes no
sense
sense
to me.
No, it doesn't make any sense to me either.
And I'm so glad to finally see the American people waking up to this. And they really have nothing but hate to offer. Why should you vote for us? Because Trump's a not Trump. Anybody that's read anything about World War II history knows there's nothing alive today that's close to the Nazi Party. Not even close to it.
Yeah,
And
but it's a
call
scare.
Trump
I mean, it's a
Nazi.
scare tactic. That's all.
It's ridiculous. And I'm just glad to finally see the American people waking up to it and rejecting it out of hand. Just no. You gotta find something to offer the people. Give us something to vote for you for.
Well, that's why they lost, because they didn't do
you know,
that.
We absolutely need two thriving parties.
Yep.
I mean, only a moron wants a one-party government.
Right.
I don't want a one-party government.
Just to balance this out, remember this. Trump needs to produce in visible ways to avoid a collapse at the midterm. Because history tells us the party in power has problems at the midterm. So they really have to produce and show us in visible ways that the economy is strong and that things are better. That's all I'm suggesting.
I think we're on our way there.
Well, I hope you're
really,
right.
I mean,
Hope you're right.
Look how far he's come just in a couple months. We got a year and a half.
I
to do
understand that. I understand that. But just keep that in mind.
Oh, I am. And I just, but I don't see them having anything to offer in the midterm.
They're in disrepair right now. I mean, the
they can't even find a leader.
Yeah, well, I read an article today that the new leader will be Andrea Ocasio-Cortez, and I went,
oh yeah,
right, there you go.
And Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, I know it. Don't discount. Don't laugh at Hakeem Jeffries. He is not a dumb man, and he is a personality.
He's slack-jawed.
Well, you call him what you want. I'm a realist.
You look at every picture of him.
You call him what you want.
Mouth.
You call him what you want. I'm a realist. I see a guy with personality that can speak well. And so consequently, when you're looking for a leader, those are some of the things you look. Well, just because you don't like what he says doesn't mean he's a bad person and can't be a leader of his party. Don't discount that.
He's a bad person. I just say he's not. I don't know if I don't believe he's saying his own words.
Well, you don't. Yeah. Well, you can believe that, but it's what his followers believe that count, not what you believe.
True that.
So that's the bottom line. So I don't discount him now. Her AOC, on the other hand, she's so far out there. I can't imagine the party would follow. I can't believe that there are no more moderates in the Democratic Party. I just don't believe that.
Well, look, it's me. She seems to be a New York. New York loves her.
Well, New York
They've
does her
reelected
district.
her, what, 4 times now?
Yeah, well, she's from my area of the Bronx, actually, in that neighborhood. But I wouldn't be voting for her, that's for sure.
I can see why you moved out. So
okay, we'll leave it there.
Okay. You have a great day.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
All right, that'll do it for calls because that's all the time we have for them. But we will be back to close out and tell you what's ahead.
Welcome to retirement. Now.